Cal.
Kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me, how to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to TavisTalks.com right now. That's TavisTalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Moving Mountain Mondays, and we're in the classroom with Ernest Krim. We're also being joined by and with Professor Ted Williams, both a doctor, both a PhD, and a minister. And we are in Ernest Krim's classroom in the first hour on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are commemorating the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., 97 years old he would have been on January 15th. And we are so grateful that we can sojourn together to share our thoughts, reflections, and maybe even gain some insight into what Martin Luther King Jr., had he lived to be 97 years old, could and would be mentoring us about our understanding of what's taking place in our world. Let me first begin by welcoming our regular contributor, Ernest Krim, to the program. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, what's up, my brothers? It's good to be here with you today on such a momentous occasion.
Ernest, we're also joined with Reverend Ted Williams as our very special guest as well.
How you doing, Rev? Good to be with you today.
Fantastic, man. Good to see you.
Ernest, we decided to turn our reflection to April 4th, 1967, the Riverside speech. Dr. King is an immensely unpopular person. He's being rejected by Black clergymen. The Democratic Party, the party of Lyndon Baines Johnson, is turning its back on Martin Luther King Jr. Many people within the movement, including young, if you will, another generation of activists, see Dr. King at 39 as old, as a man whose time has come and gone. In daytime, his path for justice and his way to truth is not working. Get rid of the old guy. Here comes the new guy. It's April 4th, 1967, and he's an immensely unpopular person in the United States. Ernest, your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts are the humility of having been thrusted into the national spotlight at around 25 years old, as a young man, as a young doctor, young PhD, and to be regarded as old, not much further than a decade after that. And as someone who is around that age range now, I reflect on that because there will come a day and age when we are all regarded as the Gen Z will say now, as Unc, right? As the old guy, right? as the OG. And the first time I saw somebody refer to me as Unc in my comments, I almost passed out because I thought they were maybe on the wrong page. I was assuming
it doesn't take much to become an Unc these days, man.
You know, man. I'm like, who? Not me. I'm a millennial.
I hate to ask Professor Williams, what are they calling him these days?
I know, man. I've been Unc for about a decade at least now.
Man. It is very humbling, right? Because I think with King having that arc, he's able to see that although he has the experience, the wisdom, the insight, that he is now regarded as the old guy in the room, the old guy in the club that nobody else wants to hear from. But regardless of that, and regardless of how he was demeaned by people outside and within our community, regardless of how people looked at him as maybe going too far, being too radical, he still continued to speak truth to power in this moment at a time when we needed it more than any other, because to be able to connect the racism and the classism that we dealt with militarism was something that most leaders weren't willing or bold enough to do in that time and in that moment. We're seeing a king that is saying that, yes, it's okay. Now we can of course integrate at the lunch counter. We can get on the bus. You know, we can vote now. Of course, there are still restrictions. We can go into certain places that we weren't allowed to. Schools are being desegregated, but we still can't put food on the table. And a part of that is because we are spending so much more money on killing innocent men, women, and children across the globe than investing in our own communities here. And it's crazy in hindsight to imagine that saying something like that would make a man with the pedigree and the track record of King, Nobel Peace Prize winning King, that would make him unpopular. And that is something that we still grapple with today, because our truth tellers, those who live a long life, will also be regarded as king. And because we have placed a timetable and an expiration date on when we think we should be hearing from leaders, we will unfortunately oftentimes disregard people that we should be gleaming from and learning from. That's what I gather from this.
And with about a minute and a half before we come forward, Dr. Williams, how do you juxtapose the thousands of celebrations that are taking place across the country with the reality that the hour of his death, this was an immensely unpopular man?
We love the idea of Dr. King and the dream, but we don't want to wake up and live out the reality of his work. It is very clear that people can accept the idea of equality, but not accept the idea of the work and the sacrifice that it would take for us to get to equality. And so Dr. King became very unpopular when he started talking about policy. When he said that America now, what you've done before by desegregating lunch counters didn't cost you anything. But now we're coming to collect, to check. We are going to call you to work for this. And in that way, Dr. King became very unpopular. He also became unpopular because he expanded the scope of what it meant to be human. Because in many people's eyes, civil rights are civil rights only. They are not human rights. We should be talking about lunch counters and jobs for Black people. We should not be talking about Vietnam and Venezuela.
I find that fascinating. I'm so looking forward to us continuing the conversation. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are with Professor Ted Williams and our regular contributor. We are in Ernest Krim's classroom. We are discussing the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. and his impact on the world. More on that speech that he gave on April 4th, 1967, Beyond Vietnam, when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, good morning, kiddo. I love that you're home from college. I've missed you.
Still taking your Nature Made vitamins?
Every day. A multivitamin and a probiotic. You better be taking yours.
Still looking out for me, Mom.
I'll never stop.
Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand. Find us in the vitamin aisle, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Just before we turn our conversation to Ernest Crim's classroom and our very special guest, Ted Williams, our producer, Gina Towns, has a clip. Gina?
I found myself in full accord when I read its opening lines. A time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us in relation to Vietnam. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is a most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformist thought within one's own bosom and in the surrounding world. Moreover, when the issues at hand seem as perplexing as they often do, in the case of this dreadful conflict, we are always on the verge of being mesmerized by uncertainty. But we must move on. Some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak. We must speak with all the humility that is appropriate to our limited vision. But we must speak. And we must rejoice as well, for surely this is the first time in our nation's history that a significant number of its religious leaders have chosen to move beyond the prophesying of smooth patriotism to the high grounds of a firm dissent based upon the mandates of conscience and the reading of history.
And you all just heard an excerpt from Dr. King's Beyond Vietnam speech from 1967. And I think for myself, as I reflect on that speech, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the utterings of Dr. King saying something so profound and simple, something as simple as silence is betrayal. And I think that we all have to reflect on that in this moment and what that means for us. Because for Dr. King to say that although this speech is a lot longer than that singular phrase right there, silence is betrayal means something so pivotal in this moment, because in a capitalist state, in a capitalist country, we are all placed with the burden daily to focus on going to work daily, making ends meet daily, versus the balancing act of speaking out against the injustices of the moment. Silence is betrayal, because by staying silent about those issues while children are starving across our country, in our communities, and losing access to a variety of different services, and children across the country and the world are starving as a result of American imperialism, we are in a sense allowing this to continue to happen. When we reflect on those words of silence being betrayal, I like to always emphasize this fact to people when I speak to different audiences. And this might be something that doesn't connect with a lot of folks in the immediacy of the moment, but it should be a cause for pause. Dr. King was a regular person. And I say that whenever I talk about historical figures, whether it be a Dr. King or a Malcolm X or a Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, these were regular people who made a decision to do something as best they could based on how they were raised and based on how they were educated and based on what they were exposed to. And I say that in this instance because silence is betrayal, because what it takes for many of us to take that first step in this moment is to quite simply speak up. And what does that mean? Honestly, it's relative to every community that you are in, because all of the issues that we deal with on a grassroots level connect to the entirety of the issues we face now as a community. So to make this practical, it means we have to take a moment to speak up and refuse to be silent. Brothers, how y'all feeling about that excerpt?
You know, let me ask Dr. Williams on this question of silence. There have been multiples of hundreds of sermons, if not thousands of sermons, that have been written about speaking up. And I'm wondering, when we dig deeper into the speech, you find that Dr. King talks about this revolution of values, and he talks about the interconnectedness of human. This brief talk about our investment accounts. Words, we wake up and we don't fully appreciate just how connected to the rest of the world that we are. And so when he sees our taxpayer dollars investing in Apache helicopters and pouring napalm on people, that the American people themselves are anesthetized from the reality that they just wake up in the morning and they want to see how the price of oil. But President Trump wants to seize it and bring it to the American people, while poor Venezuelans might walk 3,000 miles to get to the United States. And you could just go right down the list of the world's poor who are on the receiving end of American weaponry, our taxpayer dollars, so that we can be made more convenient right here in the United States without any full appreciation for the context within which they live.
Yeah, we are, I love the term that you use, interconnectedness, because the reality is that it's so easy within the modern society, and even during Dr. King's day as well, for us to engage in American consumerism without ever questioning or investigating how that consumerism affects real people. And so, Dr. King, I love the statement that you made earlier in the work that we've been together, you've been speaking around, that we've got to move from a thing-oriented society to a people-oriented society. In that speech, Dr. King talks about the triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism. And how ultimately, if we don't understand that these issues impact all of us, when a Venezuelan family is coming across the border and they are living, trying to figure out how to survive in this world, that impacts me and you, right? When someone is starving in the streets in our country and they don't have health care, they don't have adequate education, they don't have adequate housing, it impacts all of us. The problem with our current administration, and also what Dr. King was up against, was he was engaging with people who manifested through all their policies militarism, racism, materialism. That's our current president now. And so what he has been doing is the exact opposite of pushing forth the notion of human connection. He is saying to you and I that there are others in the United States. And I believe, as Dr. King believed, as you believe, in the work that all of us are doing, is that there are no others in the United States. There's only U.S. There's only us.
Ernest, he globalizes the Negro struggle from civil rights to this idea of human rights. He's asking us, we got a lot of problems in the South. We got a lot of problems in the North. Our young people are restless. They want to burn something down. They got Molotov cocktails. He talks about it in the speech. And then they ask him the question, as he prods them towards the idea of nonviolence, they ask him the question, what about Vietnam, Doc? Doesn't our government solve all of its problems by violence? Why are you asking us, Professor Krim, to be different?
I love that portion. And again, going back to that arc and the maturation and the development that Dr. King has, because we know we can place him in different time periods based on when he first came on the national scene. One thing I also want to bring to folks' attention as I was reflecting on the speech, I think it's important for people to understand in this era, Dr. King, Malcolm X, we are talking about two people who have way more in common than they don't. But it's often been fed to us as if they were against each other, as if they were the hero and the villain. These were two brothers who had very different upbringings, but also wanted liberation for Black folks and had different ideas about how that should be done. And I'm saying this because we know Malcolm X was a few years older, and towards the end of his life, he did not know it would be the end, but towards the end of his life, he began speaking about human rights issues. Towards the end of Dr. King's life, he begins to speak about human rights. And I'm just understanding as they came to that age in their late 30s, they began to think more broadly about what they dealt with, because through experience, through traveling, through reading, through connecting, you see, oh, what's happening here is not just unique to America. Like Reverend Williams said, this is something that's impacting us all as human beings. And I really resonate with what he said about, you know, I can no longer speak down to the brothers in the hood or the ghetto who are responding with violence until I began to critique the greatest purveyor of violence in this world, the very country I live in that's using my tax money to commit violence and genocide across the country. That reflection is what I would often say to my children in my classroom whenever there would be issues of fighting in the class, because we always talked about the issues of why are our kids fighting. And I taught at a diverse school for many years, and most often the kids who are most likely fighting were kids who looked like us. And I would have conversations with them, but I would also be honest with them to say that, you know, of course, I want you to practice better conflict resolution skills, but I have to be honest. At the same time that our educators and administrators and the other adults in the building speak down to you, we also expect you to anoint America to this grand level of praise without critiquing the fact that essentially every single year that this country has existed, it's about to be 250 years, they have been involved in a foreign conflict, a war, or explicit genocide to the people here. So it is very hypocritical that we often expect our youth to grow up and learn something different when we, the adults, the government, have not actually committed to doing something different. There is a difference, of course, we understand between nonviolence and we know self-defense, but America, like Dr. King said, has always been the purveyor, the initiator, the instigator, the one that throws the rock and hides their hands. And we had that same conversation, brothers, in 2020, when young folks across the country were upset with what happened with, you know, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so on and so forth. Because we understand the anger, and we understand that anger comes from a place where they are not able in that moment to understand critically where it should go, because we have all been miseducated. We have all had this trauma compounded on us generation after generation. How can you expect us to respond appropriately when we have never been, you know, treated appropriately? And also, too, there is an element of being able to engage in a nonviolent struggle, y'all, truthfully, comes from a place of privilege, in my perspective. Because if you are living in poverty in the hood or the ghetto, you don't really have a recourse, or you don't feel as though you have a recourse. And that's why what Dr. King said, although it was the appropriate way, it was so hard for people to understand, because it's like, King, I ain't got no food. What are you expecting me to do? How am I supposed to passively agitate when I'm starving, right? And I think in that moment, we hear a King who is really reflecting on his own critiques and saying, maybe I still have more to learn myself.
Professor Williams, Professor Krim raises the question about the greatest purveyor of violence in the world.
Yeah.
When you look at the 250-year history of the United States, against the backdrop of all of human history and civilizations, America shows up on the stage with the biggest weapons, the biggest bomb, I mean, the least culture, and she shows up ready to blow everything up.
Absolutely. And then provides guns and weaponry to its own citizens under this notion of the Second Amendment. We have over 300 million guns in the country, only 300 million citizens. We have more guns than we have people in this country. And then wonder why we have the level of violence that we have. You know, Dr. King, and we can talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, but Dr. King was very specific in this speech about how he wanted to see peace happen. He called for an end to bombing in North and South Vietnam. He called for a unilateral ceasefire. He called for a date when the troops would be removed. These are very specific issues. This was not just dreaming, but this was action. And I think we have to today make the same kinds of statements. We have a president right now who is upset because he did not win a Nobel Peace Prize, and said when he did not get that prize, that is the reason why he decided he was going to go and try to take Greenland. Had you given me the prize, literally he says this just the other day, I would probably not have gone into Greenland. And so we are manifesting this level of violence in the world. How dare we be the ones who are upset when there's no peace?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says reports of a Justice Department investigation into him and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are deeply concerning. Speaking with ABC's This Week, he insists they've done nothing wrong.
This is a very serious matter.
The reported probe centers on their public comments about ICE deployments in Minneapolis. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore and a bipartisan group of governors are calling for urgent reforms to the PJM interconnection energy market. They want new power generation incentives, protections for consumers, and data centers to help cover the costs they create, saying families and businesses should not be stuck with soaring energy bills. And the Trump administration has dropped Martin Luther King Jr. Day from its list of free national park days this year. In contrast, California will offer free entry at more than 200 state parks for MLK Day, with Governor Gavin Newsom saying the move honors King's legacy of justice and equality. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has set starting times for next Sunday's NFC and AFC championship games. The Rams are at Seattle, 3:30 kickoff local time on Fox. In the AFC, New England is at Denver, kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of the utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's given us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foster, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Welcome back, y'all, to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I am the co-host for this hour, Mr. Ernest Cram III, y'all, and today we are celebrating the legacy and the birthday of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This hour, we've been talking about a speech that should be known to more folks. We often talk about the dream, and the dream is necessary to hear, but we also have to reflect on and place at a higher pedestal the words that he said in Beyond Vietnam. Welcome back, brothers.
Thank you, Ernest, for having us, and thank you for bringing us back. Let me go back to Brother Williams for a moment. Dr. King talks in this speech about a revolution of values, and that's not something we've considered. We've considered social justice activism. We've considered, engagement. We show up at rallies. We show up at conferences. We show up at picket lines. We show up or don't show up at boycotts. We follow the leader, but he's saying, I think, that something internally within us has to pay attention to this question that you raised earlier of interconnectedness.
Let me read his words from the speech. Let us love one another, for love is God, and everything that loveth is born of God. He's quoting scripture here. And knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. Dr. King says this: let us hope that the Spirit will become the order of the day. We can no longer afford to worship the God of hate or bow before the altar of retaliation. The oceans of history are made turbulent by the ever-rising tides of hate. Hate is cluttered with the wreckage of nations and individuals that pursue the self-defeating path of hate. As Arnold Toynbee says, love is the ultimate force that makes for the saving choice of life and good against the damning choice of death and evil. Therefore, the first hope in our inventory must be the hope that love is going to have the last word. Dr. King is talking about a revolution or values in the sense of having a radical love for one another, a love that goes beyond our ethnic backgrounds, our socioeconomic status, our geographic areas, although some of the geographic beef that we have is justified when, as myself as a Bears fan, you go up to Green Bay, some of that geographic beef is justified. But outside of that, right? Outside of that, Dr. King is saying we have to love beyond these boundaries. And I think, and to be frank, my brother, you hear folks like Marianne Williamson and folks like that who have talked about this, and people feel that that's too ethereal and it's too soft, and we should talk about policy, but we can't get to good public policy if we don't have good values, if we don't understand what love is. Dr. Cornel West says that justice is what love looks like in public, right? So I'm excited about the work that you're doing and other folks like yourself, is that we're trying to go into the political space and say, yes, politics is about who gets what, where, why, and how. We know that, right? The technical part. But if we don't understand how to love our fellow man, if we don't understand how to find commonality with immigrants and people who are poor and people who are marginalized, and if we don't understand how to see ourselves within those folks, then there's no public policy to be made in the first place. And so the beauty of Dr. King is that he speaks to the moral high ground of American politics. And if we don't find that again, because I think, my brother, in the last 8 years or so, the 4 years, and then back to the other 4 years, whatever we are with our current administration, we're moving in the wrong direction. It is about us living out the radical Christian principle of love for those who do not look like us, talk like us, sound like us. If we can do that, America will survive. If we do not, America will not.
Ernest, Professor Williams put something heavy on us right there in terms of the role of the Spirit and the power of love.
Yeah. I don't think that, to echo his point, there can be no true justice without love. And I think that gets at the core of the issues that we've had in America. And I wouldn't even phrase it as most of us would often say, is like, wow, white folks don't love us or white folks don't care for us. I would wonder if they care and love for themselves. That's the question that I have for their community, because how you treat me is a reflection of how you feel about yourself and how you treat yourself. And I think that's something that they have to truly grapple with, and we don't often refer to them as a community, but they are, right? Resmaa Menakem often challenges folks to reflect on not just the racial trauma that we have been exposed to and have inherited as Black folks or indigenous folks or brown folks, but also too as white people. What were they enduring in Europe during the Middle Ages or Dark Ages, right? That they did not attempt to heal from, that they brought here and tried to overcompensate with the accumulation of capital, and I think that when we get at the core of why Christianity is often distorted here and why our history classes are often distorted here, is because that if you get to the truth of both, get to the core of both, that's when you begin healing. And there are so many people whose very existence is predicated upon our inability to heal together as a human family. And that's what I gather from this. And even to what you said, Reverend Williams, I was even thinking about from that statement what Dr. King talked about and where do we go from here. I was reading it this morning, actually, and he said something like, throughout our history, laws affirming Negro rights have consistently been circumvented by ingenious evasions which render them void in practice. Laws that affect the whole population, draft laws, income tax laws, traffic laws, manage to work even though they may be unpopular. But laws passed for the Negro's benefits are so widely unenforced that it is a mockery to call them laws. There is a tragic gulf between civil rights laws passed and civil rights laws implemented. Do they care enough to implement the laws that are already on the books? And as we can see today, the answer seems to be no.
Well, I think what's going on in my mind is in this capitalist system, there is this set of false choices. We don't believe that there's enough to go around. We believe in this idea that if my neighbor gets healthcare, if my neighbor gets housing, if my neighbor gets a higher minimum wage, in some way that threatens me, right? And so the reality is that is not, in fact, the case. We have to look at this billionaire and millionaire class that exists in society, where in a city like Chicago, where there are efforts to raise taxes on people on the south and west sides, but when you look downtown, places like Trump Tower are paying less taxes. We have to understand that this false notion that if the billionaires make it, the rest of us are going to make it, just does not work. It's not reality. And we got to find a way for all of us to rise together. I agree with you, my brother. I think capitalism is at its core. But with that, we're talking about this notion of love, and I'm sure we'll get more into that later.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. More when we come forward with Professor Williams and Professor Ernest Krim.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Still battling a thirsty lawn that guzzles water and drains your wallet? Let LADWP turn that patch of grass into a gorgeous drought-smart garden for free. We're talking a full California-friendly landscape makeover designed and installed by pros at no cost to you. That's right, LADWP does the work, you get the upgrade. Ready to transform your yard and save big? Visit LADWP.com/leap. That's LADWP.com/LEAP.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me, how to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to TavisTalks.com right now. That's TavisTalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency. All over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I want to go back. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I know that Professor Williams and Professor Krim want to have a brief conversation about what happened to Sister Good in Minneapolis. But I do want to raise this question. What Donald Trump has done in Central America, it kind of better explains why Castro had the posture that he had and why Che Guevara had the posture that they had about colonializing these lands that belong to the indigenous people.
He confirmed their biggest fears, and everyone said that they were crazy and that they were too radical. And they knew very clearly that anytime you have an imperial power with the level of power the United States has, that at any point they could use that power to really overturn and upend their society. And he confirmed that. And I think, as American citizens, we have to, at the end of the day, understand that we have the power. We have to put our foot down. And we have to say that we do not want our tax dollars. We do not want our labor. We do not want our young people to work in the service of colonialism and empire. It is not right. It is unconscionable. And I can tell you that if we allow this to go on, like what has happened with these ICE raids, what happened to the sister that you just mentioned that was killed when the police came to her and, tried to get her out of her car, you can see very clearly from the video that the woman is trying to move her wheel to get out of there. Why would she go there to kill an ICE agent? If she wanted to do that, she would have done it in the first place. But if we stand by, we allow this to happen, shame on us, right? And I'm also afraid for us. The beauty of sometimes when we see injustices occur is we can see people standing up. And what is heartening right now is that there are people in Minnesota who said enough is enough. Mm-hmm. We will not stand by and watch this happen. I pray to God that we see much more of that.
Brother Krim?
Yes, I have similar sentiments. I think that if we are in 2026 and still looking for people to find a wake-up call and seeing someone who looks like them be brutalized as a call to get involved, then we are further behind than I would like for us to be. However, if that is the thing that signifies to people that this is something that impacts us all, it's better late than never. But we don't have to look far back in the past to see similar situations as Renee Nicole Good. There was Viola Liuzzo in the 60s in Selma who was tragically murdered for driving from Detroit, Michigan to Selma to get involved in this movement. I think because of how this society has been racialized and how we view everything, we assume that racism and the attacks towards our people only impact us, when in fact that embedded within that is also classism and the economic issues we are involved in. And what they fear is really what we see is a result of why race and racism was created, because when there is class unity, then we know what the numbers look like. It's almost like rephrasing ourselves as a minority, because we are a minority here, but if you think about globally, we are far from that. So again, going back to King's connection, Malcolm X's connection of human rights, it's a lot more people who are struggling, or the so-called middle class and lower classes of the world, than there are of people who have accumulated all of this wealth through nefarious means. And I've seen several articles and studies today that show that wealth gap is growing even more in this generation. So what happened to her tragically,
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica,
and what has continued to happen to brothers and sisters across the country.
With BIN News now, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Bryan said reports of a Justice Department investigation into him and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are deeply concerning. Speaking with ABC's This Week, he insists they've done nothing wrong.
This is a very serious matter.
The reported probe centers on their public comments about ICE deployments in Minneapolis. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore and a bipartisan group of governors are calling for urgent reforms to the PJM interconnection energy market. They want new power generation incentives, protections for consumers, and data centers to help cover the costs they create, saying families and businesses should not be stuck with soaring energy bills. And the Trump administration has dropped Martin Luther King Jr. Day from its list of free national park days this year. In contrast, California will offer free entry at more than 200 state parks for MLK Day, with Governor Gavin Newsom saying the move honors King's legacy of justice and equality. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Professor Williams, on this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., is there a word of hope with all that's going on?
There is. As I said a little earlier, when people are faced with injustice and they stand up, that represents hope. I am grateful and heartened by the people of Minnesota. I'm grateful that, the day that we went into Venice that I was able to be a part of immediately, same day, multiple rallies and marches across the country. The people united will never be defeated. And so every time you see evil, there's an opportunity for good. This is a biblical concept that we should not be afraid of evil, and not be afraid of darkness, but we ought to shine a light. And so when light does shine, there really is no way for darkness to survive. The Trump administration and what they're doing is untenable. It is unsustainable. It will not last. This president will be in office for whatever period of time he's in office, but the United States cannot survive another 4 or 8 or 10 or 12 or number of years of this kind of action. And so I am encouraged, because I see that in a society that on the surface might look relatively politically apathetic, we might look at Americans and say we're only concerned with consumerism and that sort of thing. When something happens like what happened to the young lady in Minnesota, Miss Good, you see those folks who believe in something different, you see them stand up. And for that, my brother, there is great hope.
Mm-hmm. Brother Krim, a final word of hope?
Yes, indeed. To echo once again Reverend Williams' profound words, I think the fact that we are still here and able to even see that we have been able to benefit from the fruits of Dr. King's labor and the various other leaders from that time, that should give us hope to say that what can we do in this moment that will be something that future generations benefit from 60 years in the future. We have to take this moment, in my opinion, realize that Dr. King cannot ever again be one singular person. We should never expect that to be the burden of one man. We should all collectively in our communities do what is necessary. We should all try to be the proverbial Dr. Kings and create the proverbial SCLCs and SNCCs to understand what this takes. And if you live in a city as big as LA or a city as big as LA or New York, then that starts with your neighborhood, with your neighborhood councils, your boroughs, and things like that. We can get this done, but we have to all be on one accord, because like you said, silence, betrayal, and that can no longer be. I got to close this by saying, I know we are broadcasting, and I love y'all, but I can't stand y'all. Y'all did, I'm there.
Brother Krim, thank you so much for your participation, your regular contribution. Always an honor to be in your classroom.
Likewise, thanks for having me again.
Man, I wish I had an apple to leave on your desk. And Brother Williams, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's always an honor.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on KBLA.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
And News Now. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frye says reports of a Justice Department investigation
This is a very serious matter.
The reported probe centers on their public comments about ICE deployments in Minneapolis. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore and a bipartisan group of governors are calling for urgent reforms to the PJM interconnection energy market. They want new power generation incentives, protections for consumers, and data centers to help cover the costs they create, saying families and businesses should not be stuck with soaring energy bills. And the Trump administration has dropped Martin Luther King Jr. Day from its list of free national parks. With Governor Gavin Newsom saying the move honors King's legacy of justice and equality. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has set starting times for next Sunday's NFC and AFC championship games. The Rams are at Seattle, 3:30 kickoff local time on Fox. In the AFC, New England is at Denver, kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy MLK Day from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. Don't forget to tune in for a special rebroadcast of the Empowerment Congress Gubernatorial Forum, hosted by Tavis Smiley with special commentary by Dr. Neek Hordelai Corte. That's 4 to 7 today on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. The app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. On this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. I almost called him just the Dreamer. I think we did that for the first 3 decades of this holiday. But now we're digging even deeper into the message, what Dr. King has to say for these times. Our guest in this hour, Reverend Adam Russell Taylor, is president of Sojourners and author of A More Perfect Union, a new vision for building the beloved community. Follow him on Blue Sky at Rev Adam Taylor. Taylor previously led the Faith Initiative at the World Bank Group and served as vice president in charge of advocacy at World Vision US and the senior political director at Sojourners. He has also served as the executive director of Global Justice, an organization that educates and mobilizes students around global human rights and economic justice issues. He was selected for the 2009 and 2010 class of the White House Fellows and served in the White House Office of Cabinet Affairs and Public Engagement. Taylor is a graduate of Emory University and Harvard University, the Kennedy School of Government, and the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. Taylor also serves as an independent sector board and global advisory board of the Tier Fund in the United Kingdom and is a member of the inaugural class of the Aspen Civil Society Fellowship. Dr. Taylor, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Happy 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. Also joining us is Reverend Dr. Ted Williams. He is a professor in the city of Chicago at Chicago
Kennedy King College.
Kennedy King College.
And the city colleges. Our school is named after Dr. King.
It certainly is. Dr. Taylor, let me ask you a question. Your reflections on this being the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., and if you don't mind, juxtapose that against the world that we find ourselves in at this hour.
That is a really timely and powerful question. I mean, as I reflect on Dr. King's legacy, one of the things that pains me, and just to express some of my admiration and love for Dr. King, I'm proud to be a member of the same fraternity as Dr. King, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Everybody can't be a Q, bro.
Hey, well, love for the Penland Council as a whole, but I also, when I was at Emory, had a chance to volunteer at the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change and led tours. This is back before it was the full museum that it is now. But the civil rights movement has very much kind of framed my life and my sense of vocation. And one of the things that pains me is when we overly sanitize or freeze frame Dr. King. You kind of alluded to this in only one little section of his I Have a Dream speech. And that is not the totality of Dr. King's dream. He had a bold and transformational vision, both for the United States, but also for this world. And I know that we'll be reflecting on his Beyond Vietnam speech, which, to note, was arguably the speech that led to his significant dip in popularity in the country before he was tragically assassinated. He had the courage to stand against the Vietnam War because of his Christian convictions. And as you know, in that speech, he names the three evil triplets, or the three triplets of racism, militarism, and materialism. And we are still grappling with those triplets today in our nation. The other thing that I think is really important to note is Dr. King understood the principal importance of voting, of the right to vote, as being foundational to all of our other freedoms. It's part of why the 1965 Voting Rights Act was one of the crown achievements of the civil rights movement. And, for Dr. King, he believed that by securing the right to vote, we as a people would be able to ensure that there is truly liberty and justice for all, which is obviously a creedal promise in our nation's constitution. And yet, fast forward over 50 years later, and we are still struggling with a modern day fight over the right to vote. That we are seeing efforts to try to restrict voting, particularly among Black and brown communities around this country, all under the pretense of election security and to somehow combat election fraud. And so, there are a number of issues that we are facing that I think Dr. King would be both, heartbroken about and would be vigilantly speaking out against. And so I think that kind of courageous, bold, countercultural ethic of Dr. King is something that we desperately need now, particularly as we face arguably the greatest assault on our democracy that we have seen, certainly in my generation, but arguably in our nation's history.
Ted, Reverend Taylor touches upon the idea that the Robinson versus Calais decision, we are still waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court of the United States that could very well strike down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act on this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr.
What is the irony of that? I would say that as Reverend Taylor spoke, I would actually disagree with him on one point. He said that we're grappling with these questions of racism, militarism, and materialism. And I wish he was correct. I don't think we're grappling with them. I think we're at a place where we have embraced this materialism. I wish we were grappling more. I wish we were having more conversations about, is this the kind of society we want going forward? I wish we were having more conversations about the use of our military. And as you said, how can we be at the 97th birthday of Dr. King and be talking about restricting the right to vote? This just seems like insanity to me. But it is so critical for, once again, people of good conscience to stand up and move forward at this time, for such a time as this, my theological brothers. This is really where we are right now, that moment that Esther faced, that moment that many people in Scripture face, where they had the opportunity to stand up and make a difference for their generation and generations to come. And that is the time we find ourselves in.
Reverend Taylor, we have about 1 minute before we come forward, so I know when we come forward, that means we're coming to our break. When we do come forward, I'd like to hear your thoughts about Renee Good in Minneapolis and the overall ICE context of Dr. King. For me, at least, and my study of the Civil War to the present, this is really the first time, Reverend Williams and Reverend Taylor, that the federal government itself is no longer an entity that we can rely upon on the questions of justice. Now imagine that in this federalist system, we've always gone to the federal government to get a redress of our grievances. But now the federal government is saying, by eliminating all of these departments of civil rights in almost every conceivable cabinet level position, they're simply saying they're not enforcing historic discrimination against African Americans, women, Native Americans, or any of the believers that were part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s coalition. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Reverend Adam Taylor is our very special guest, filling in for Teresa Hord Owens, and our regular contributor, Reverend Ted Williams, is here on the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, good morning, kiddo. I love that you're home from college. I've missed you.
Still taking your Nature Made vitamins?
Every day. A multivitamin and a probiotic. You better be taking yours.
Still looking out for me, Mom.
I'll never stop.
Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand. Find us in the vitamin aisle, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Moving Mountain Mondays and the Faith Not to Fold with our regular contributor, Teresa Hort Owens, who is not with us today. We're very grateful that Reverend Adam Taylor is sitting in for Reverend Owens today. And of course, Reverend Ted Williams, our regular contributor, is also present. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Taylor, let me ask you this question. Given that this reflection does include Martin Luther King Jr., given that Selma to Montgomery, which ultimately led to the Voting Act, began with the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson, James Bevel at that funeral says that we need to march from Selma to Montgomery. Obviously, John Lewis crosses the bridge and we confront the Alabama State Police on that occasion. But on the sojourn back and forth between Selma and Montgomery, Reverend James Reeb is killed, a Unitarian minister. Viola Luizzo, a white woman, is shot in the face. She's called a nigger lover. I don't like to use that word, but that's exactly what the testimony revealed. And now we see this woman in Minnesota patrolling, if you will, keeping her eye on her First Amendment right, the behavior of ICE and her neighbors as an American citizen. And the federal government, through its agents, shoot her in the face. These times almost perfectly reflect the times during the period when Viola Luizzo lost her life between Selma and Montgomery. Reverend Taylor?
So this strikes really personally for me because I happen to be in Wisconsin now. I'm giving a keynote address in Wisconsin, Martin Luther King address, but I was in Minneapolis earlier today. My brother lives in the Minneapolis area, and I literally went to the memorial for Renee Good, where she was murdered by the ICE officer. And what is really clear to me is that the Trump administration is using this mass deportation policy as the tip of the spear to consolidate its power and try to impose control on particularly blue states, blue cities, etc. And I think that is part of the reason that Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, was chosen, because of its history of activism, civic activism, its strong commitment to a social safety net, and to embracing diversity as a strength, not as a liability. And one of the things that I think we have to be really clear about is that Renee Good should be with us today. That she sacrificed her life trying to care for and protect her immigrant neighbors from the excessive force of ICE that has now been declared illegal by a federal judge who literally compared what ICE is doing in Minneapolis to what was happening in Birmingham at the height of the civil rights movement. That this historical parallel was recognized by this federal judge, who has now put an injunction to block some of the excessive tactics of ICE in Minneapolis. If we don't support faith leaders and community leaders in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities right now to make a moral stand, this kind of ICE surge and these excessive, often unlawful tactics are going to be replicated in other cities and localities all around the country. There is a major call for a national boycott and a day of action on the 23rd of January, so this coming Friday. And I know there's many different groups that are involved, including Isaiah and more, that are calling for many national faith leaders to come into Minneapolis to be a part of this. And so I really think this is a moment where not only do we have to mourn the life of Renee Good, but we have to make a courageous stand against the overhanded and excessive tactics of ICE and ultimately get ICE out of these cities, get justice for Renee Good. It's ridiculous that this administration is arguing that ICE officers have immunity. I mean, in what world is that true? Particularly if we believe in no one being above the law and we believe in due process. And we have to do as much as we can to humanize those immigrants that are on the front end of so much of this cruelty and so much of this intimidation. So I really see this as a kind of civil rights-esque moment. And, you know, the tactics of ICE, the raids, the disappearing of people literally is one step further down this slide into a more authoritarian type government.
Reverend Taylor, what was the mood at the memorial? What was being said? How many people were there? And what about her family? What take us to that place.
So I only went to the site where there's flowers and there's pictures at the site where she was killed. So it wasn't like a memorial service per se. There were a handful of people there this morning, but I was there pretty early. So, I mean, and it's also 2 degrees here there in Minneapolis. So I wasn't surprised there wasn't a big crowd. But, you know, for those of us that were there was kind of a somber mood. And, you know, we greeted each other. I learned a little bit about some of the folks that are kind of providing a ongoing witness at the memorial site itself. And I would say that the people that I have talked to in Minneapolis have both a sense of deep anguish, but also deep resolve, that they believe that their core values are being attacked. And I would argue what they are standing for is directly aligned with Dr. King's message and vision, and it's directly aligned with the best of our Christian values and of our constitutional values of ensuring liberty and justice for all. And so that's a little bit of what I picked up on so far.
Reverend Taylor, you know, I know the history of the Disciples of Christ, and I certainly know the leadership of Reverend Terry Hort Owens. Are you sensing a coming together between African Americans in Minnesota as participating broadly, generally, empathetically, sympathetically with Renee Good? There's no racial division there. And I know that the church, the Disciples of Christ, focuses on that. I'm wondering what you're seeing on the ground. I know what we did for George Floyd, and I know how the community came together. Is the same community coming together for Renee Good?
In many ways it is. I mean, I am grateful that a lot of the infrastructure and the relationships and trusts were built after the murder of George Floyd have endured, and that they're able to build on that for this particular moment. I know that Isaiah is a community organizing, congregational organizing network that has a lot of African American leadership, and they're part of organizing some of these actions next week on Friday. And so I do believe that the African American community, as well as the Muslim community, we have to remember that so much of the other reason why I think this administration is targeting Minnesota and Minneapolis is because of the large Somali community that is there. And, you know, to refer to Somali Americans as garbage is, you know, not uncommon for this president. But I believe in my faith tradition that every single person is made in the image of God. And that kind of language mars and defaces that very image. And so I think there has been just a rallying of the people of Minneapolis, because what is happening is so antithetical to their sense of community values, their commitment to one another. I mean, the amount of mutual aid that is pouring out to support immigrants and others that are in harm's way, the amount of activists that are marching nightly on the streets, including providing vigils outside of one of the notorious detention centers called the Whipple Center. I mean, there's a lot that's happening that I think is pretty encouraging and pretty inspirational.
Reverend Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what my friend Reverend Taylor here is saying, that when you see people standing up in the midst of injustice, it is really what this country is about. And so rather than looking at the Trump administration and all of his threats to civil rights and civil liberties as a scar on the American story, I believe in many ways this is what's going to help us to become America. This idea of making America great again, going back to some nostalgic time when many people in the American story were not a part of that story. I believe that this is making us determine and decide that we're going to be great once and for all, that we're going to we're going to expand this notion of democracy, this idea in the declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that has never existed for us in this country. And so Donald Trump, in a very warped way, is actually going to move us closer, because it's waking up the average person who might sit back and say, I don't really get involved in politics. I don't know anything. I'm not, on the front lines. But when ICE comes to your community, particularly for immigrants who might come just to say, hey, I'm here to make money and live my life and not get engaged in these things, well, that's not going to happen. And Donald Trump's anti-immigration policy are going to make sure that you are going to become political too. And in that way, ultimately, it can actually benefit the democracy.
Mm-hmm. Can I just mention one other quick point? One of the things that I thought the current police chief of Minneapolis did so effectively, I think his name is O'Hare, was really make the argument that ICE's violent presence in Minneapolis is actually making the overall city more unsafe, because they are having to respond to community members that are deeply concerned about what ICE is doing. And police officers are concerned because they are not practicing the kind of protocols that any enforcer of the law would have to exercise and adhere to. And so as much as this Trump administration is using this false argument, this basically lie that they are concerned deeply about law and order in our cities, what they are doing is directly undermining that. And I think we really need to be clear about that and call that out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that that there's no doubt in my mind that, well, I guess I want to ask the question, is this political, or is this something that is inherent in human nature? I think both of you all can answer the question, because we don't know who these ICE agents are. To your point, Reverend Taylor, they're not trained in the constitutional, the Miranda rights, the various protocols necessary to provide law enforcement at the local level. Their only responsibility at one level is to honor the Constitution. But these forces in our community seem to be without any control, without any training, and without any discipline. It's almost as if, I'm not going to go so far as to say that, it's almost as if they gave badges to the January 6th rioters and then put masks on them.
Well, to be fair, there might be some overlap, brother. There may be some overlap. And, I will tell you, we have to see what is happening here. As you both are students of history, understanding that after the Civil War, the Confederates did not have to truly make amends for their participation in an attempted overthrow of this government. In the same way, this president has pardoned 1,500 people for their involvement in this way, because they represent this ideology of whiteness in America, of this individualism, and really this commitment to weaponry and violence, Second Amendment, that sort of thing. These are the people that unfortunately tend to get connected with some of these law enforcement entities like ICE. And we have to recognize that. And we've got to start, to the point of this whole conversation, speaking to the heart. We've got to start working with these folks prior to even getting in these positions to help them to understand humanity. Have you ever even been in a situation where you've been around Somalians? Have you ever been in a situation where you've been the minority? What a phenomenal experience for people like that, to be in a minority situation and have to engage with people that don't look like them. We have to have, as we've been talking about, a revolution of values in the society. And I think we ought to be targeting our law enforcement very heavily on this, because they have the power of life and death in their hands.
I'm deeply concerned. Reverend Taylor, do you sense that the clergy have been responding on the scale of the problem with ICE in our communities?
I think it's stronger in some places than others. But I think there's a growing movement that is underfoot to try to get a lot more clergy engaged and off the sidelines. I mean, this is where I actually think I'll bring in Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. I mean, we need a similar call to action, particularly to the whatever the modern day equivalent of the white moderate is. And there are some, kind of white moderates in the Black church as well, in terms of the same kind of mentality. And so I think it's really crucial that we see a lot more willingness to sacrifice and be uncomfortable and to take some risks if necessary. And it doesn't mean everyone has to be engaged in protest per se, but there's a lot that needs to be done, can be done to support the efforts that we just talked about.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Moving Mountain Mondays, The Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Howard Owens. Sitting in for Terry today is Reverend Adam Taylor, a man of immense qualifications and very, very thoughtful on these contemporary issues to which we're addressing. And our very special guest, Reverend Ted Williams, has decided to stay with us. He's the hot spot for the show today. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Talks are stalled and picketing continues in New York City's largest nurses' strike ever. More than 15,000 nurses are now in week 2 of a walkout at New York City hospitals.
It has been to take care of our patients for safety and for things that how we can take care of New York City together.
Nurses are demanding guaranteed health benefits, safer staffing levels, and better security. New Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger broke inauguration tradition by wearing white to honor the women's suffrage movement instead of the traditional mourning suit. She was joined by Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones, the Commonwealth's first Black Attorney General, and State Senator Ghazala Hashmi, the first Muslim woman elected statewide. And Nike is marking Martin Luther King Jr. Day with a special Honor the King LeBron 23 sneaker. The teal design is inspired by the Lorraine Motel, now the National Civil Rights Museum, where King was assassinated in 1968. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has set starting times for next Sunday's NFC and AFC championship games. The Rams are at Seattle, 3:30 kickoff local time on Fox. In the AFC, New England is at Denver, kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me, how to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to TavisTalks.com right now. That's TavisTalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter? Right? And the best part? They accept Discover. Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Wally drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It is the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. And it would behoove me to honor on this occasion a man whose history has been dropped from the holiday because of the way in which he exited the Congress of the United States. That would be the Honorable John Conyers, who from 1968 until the passage of the holiday in 83 or 84, signed into law by Ronald Reagan, filed the King holiday legislation every single year since Martin Luther King Jr.'s death. John Conyers knew Adam Clayton Powell, Charlie Rangel, was an original founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, dean of the Illinois delegation, had been there forever. And I might add, when he got there in the late 60s, the early 70s, Congress was quite a different culture, a culture more conducive to the lifestyle of Adam Clayton Powell. So John Conyers, for a significant period of time in the Congress, was a single man. He was a single man. But when the Me Too movement came through the Congress, Congressman Conyers was swept up into the Me Too movement with some complaints about how he had treated some staff members. And without making any excuses for that, Conyers was one of the most successful African-American legislators in the history of the United States, and deserves all of the credit that we can possibly muster for his vision on this King holiday. Reverend Williams?
You said it, sir. And I think that it is critical for us to understand that these opportunities for celebration don't come by themselves. Every single victory, every single movement that we have had in this country has been hard fought. And so blessings and kudos to John Conyers and all the folks who laid the groundwork for this. It is the reason why this holiday ought to not just be commemorated, but it ought to be a time for action. I remember real quickly when I was in the fourth grade, Brother Jackson, I was sitting in school in Mrs. Gorman's class in Dalton, Illinois, and in the early 80s, and I was very bored. And she walks in and she said, "We're going to talk about the civil rights movement today. We're going to start talking about Dr. King." And I perked up. Fourth grade, I realized very clearly that people had died so that I could sit in the seat that I was in fourth grade.
Mm.
And it began to move my life in a direction. I didn't come from a family of civil rights. My dad was an entrepreneur, car dealer, a McDonald's owner. My grandfather worked for the city of Chicago. He was politically active, but my parents weren't directly, but my grandfather was. But it gave me this sense of civic engagement. And to know the history behind Dr. King's holiday gives me the same kind of feeling that I have Mrs. Gorman walked in that room to say, I can't waste this holiday.
Mm.
I have to use this holiday to move these issues and our communities forward today. This is not just about having a day off, but it's really about having a day on.
Reverend Taylor, let me ask you a question. You wrote a fascinating book called A More Perfect Union. First, share with us what the book is about, how you envisioned moving the nation forward, and how our listeners can acquire a copy of your book.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll start with the end of your question, which is you can get the book on Amazon, of course, but also on any independent bookstore, which I certainly, would advise. I wrote this book right after Donald Trump was elected the first time to be president of the United States. And I share this story in the book, and I'll share it really briefly here. I was in a very kind of meaningful, but I guess prestigious role at the World Bank at the time. And I saw his campaign where he appealed to and stoked a lot of the worst demons, if you will, in our DNA as a country, particularly racism, misogyny, and xenophobia. And those weren't deal breakers for enough Christians, particularly white Christians. And I lead a nonpartisan organization, so I'm not saying this in a partisan way. I'm saying this in a moral way. And the night after the election, maybe a night or morning that many of us would like to forget, I was up at about 3 a.m. and my older son, who was 5 years old at the time, came into our room and he was like, Mommy and Daddy, I really need to know who won the election. And we were like, well, we think Mr. Trump won. And he literally said back to us, I don't understand how someone who has said and done such mean things could win. And I was speechless. I didn't know how to respond to my son in that moment. And so I reflected on it. And there were many, I think, reasons, we don't have time to unpack them all, about why Donald Trump won the first time in 2016. But one of the things that I grappled with and felt deeply was that we didn't have a potent and unifying moral vision to counteract the Make America Great Again deep story and narrative. And we know historically that is not a new narrative. It was Ronald Reagan who coined the phrase, Make America Great Again. In many ways, it was tied into the Southern strategy that Nixon helped to develop and has been mutating in different ways ever since. And so I really felt like building on the core values and ideals that are embedded in the Constitution of the United States, and I would argue are embedded in the Holy Bible. This is what King so often appealed to. He had the Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other, and he was trying to hold our country up and be accountable to those. That we needed to develop a moral vision that, again, could be antidote to Make America Great Again, which for many of us often felt like a dog whistle to essentially make America white again, right? So I've been a kind of student of Dr. King and the civil rights movement, and have long been inspired by the moral vision of the beloved community, which Dr. King constantly would refer to. After the Montgomery bus boycott victory, he gave a speech where he literally said that the end goal of the civil rights movement was reconciliation. It was redemption. It was the creation of the beloved community. So that was kind of the North Star for Dr. King and other leaders like Ella Baker and John Lewis and so many others. And so in this book, I kind of dwell on what they had to say about the beloved community. How did they define it? And it was very much tied to a commitment to agape love, a kind of selfless and sacrificial love, a commitment to nonviolence, a commitment to equality, of course. But then I make the argument that for this thing to really get traction in our current moment, we've got to contemporize it. We have got to recast and reimagine that vision for our current moment. And so my remix of how Dr. King defined the beloved community is to create many communities and a nation where neither punishment nor privilege is tied to our race or our ethnicity or our gender or our sexual orientation, to our religion, to build a country where everyone is equally respected and valued and where everyone is enabled to thrive. And I know it's a big vision, but I think we need a big vision. And I actually think the vast majority of Americans actually don't want to live in an America where whether you are punished or not is connected to any of those parts of our identity, or whether you hold certain privileges over others is connected to those parts of our identity. Now, we can have healthy disagreements about how to get to a place where those things are no longer true. But I think we need to have a clear set of goals that are measurable and aspirational that help us get there. So the book unpacks what the beloved community is all about. And just I'll end here. I named what I call the Beatitudes of the beloved community, building on the Beatitudes of Jesus. And they include a commitment to what I call radical welcome, which we desperately need today in light of the conversation we had about ICE, a commitment to Imago Dei equality, to Ubuntu interdependence. This is built on what I learned in South Africa, that I am because we are, a commitment to dignity for all, and a commitment to environmental stewardship. And so then I kind of unpack those things, but then name ways in which people are living that out all around the country.
It's fascinating because I have a book named A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights.
Yes, indeed.
That I wrote in 2001 and are re-released in 2012. And it follows in spirit many of the themes that you're echoing in your book. Right. Of course, I make a constitutional leap that that these values, the values of the environment, the values of education, the values of healthcare and housing should be added as fundamental rights to the Constitution. I'm very grateful in this hour that Adam Russell Taylor is our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, along with Reverend Ted Williams. We'll have a couple more questions of our guests when we come forward, and then a closing word of hope from both gentlemen. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 in one moment.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
Refresh your bathroom with big savings at Lowe's. Reimagine your bathroom with up to 40% off select faucets during our Bath Savings event. Need it today? Order by 2 p.m. for same-day delivery by 8 p.m. Shop for your bathroom refresh at Lowe's. We help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location. Same-day delivery on eligible in-stock items, subject to availability. Fees vary. Visit Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for full terms.
Well, good morning, kiddo. I love that you're home from college. I've missed you.
Still taking your Nature Made vitamins?
Every day. A multivitamin and a probiotic. You better be taking yours.
Still looking out for me, Mom.
I'll never stop.
Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand. Find us in the vitamin aisle, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom,
She started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Moving Mountain Mondays, the Faith Not to Fall, with Reverend Terry Hort Owens, who is not with us today, but we have a very special guest. Adam Taylor is our very special guest in this hour. Very grateful for his participation in the show. And of course, Reverend Ted Williams, our regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I understand now, and I'm going to give Reverend Taylor an opportunity to prepare, because the final 3 minutes of our show, we leave it for a word of hope from our visiting contributor, which today, Reverend Taylor, is you. But I've just been, it's been shared with me that on the question of the mountaintop speech, Reverend Ted Williams,
actor, teacher, preacher.
You know what? You are an actor. This guy's been in movies. That's right, Ted.
Ted, just your humble servant today, my friend. That's what I hear.
I turned on TV one day.
All I am.
I think this guy was buying Subway sandwiches.
I was buying Subway. I'm just here to carry a bag, brother. That's what I'm here for.
No, not at all. Ted, share with us your insights on the mountaintop.
Yeah. So I have a production called 1619, The Journey of the People, that I wrote right before the pandemic hit, to really chronicle the 400-year journey of African Americans and tell African American history, but I always say it's American history, not African American history. Dr. King has been such an inspiration in my own life that there's a tribute section in the show to him. And I do a spoken word piece called After the Dream. I don't know, it might take me a few minutes to get through this, but at the end of the spoken word piece, we get into the mountaintop speech. All right. October 4th, 1964, the world met the youngest man to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize that night. A 35-year-old minister who turned his ministry into a movement for civil rights. Some called him a troublemaker, most a German, but many knew him as a king. He sparked a revolution of love among the masses, and we shall overcome was the anthem they would sing. And yes, it was more significant and exciting than LeBron winning another championship ring. So while we go to the house of the Lord and rightfully worship our Heavenly Father who reigns supreme, I must ask you today in 2026, how many of you will stand tall for Martin's dream? You see, since the 60s, we've been sleeping. We've been suffering from a multi-year hibernation, excusing our inaction through procrastination, waiting on our 40 acres and a mule from the government as our compensation, never realizing that God has given us the power to ensure our own elevation. You see, Jesus Christ, who's the source of my salvation, was a political and social revolutionary who changed nation after nation after nation after nation after nation. And although we think we made it far, we took a 50-year step backwards in America by electing a man who was a reality TV star. And he wants to make America great again. But see, the greatness of America has always been limited by the greatness of its greatest sin. racism, xenophobia, and the oppression of millions of people. Paradoxically, in a nation in which Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal. And though Martin and Malcolm gave us part one, we're now living in the sequel. A sequel in which we strive towards the unfulfilled promise where all men are free. A sequel in which an athlete can lose his job for the peaceful protest of taking a knee. A sequel in which the poor are demonized by a society that worships the elite. A sequel in which the president stokes the fires of racial hatred with the power of a single tweet. There's more to that piece, but I'm going to give you the ending because it goes into Dr. King's words. He said, "We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really don't matter with me now. Because see, I've been to the mountain and I don't mind. Like anyone, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But see, I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up. I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. You see, I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And so I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." Your producer made me.
Amen.
Reverend Taylor, we have about 4 minutes before the top of the show. Please take your time. A word of hope for our national and international audience that's listening to us on this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr.
So a couple of quick thoughts. One, and I'm going to, because it's Dr. King's birthday, I'm going to build on some of his quotes, my favorite quotes by him. So one of the things we have not talked about that I think is one of the forces that is fueling the MAGA movement is this growing white Christian nationalist movement that so often replaces the cross with the flag. And we don't have time to unpack it all. But Dr. King had a quote where he said that the church at its best is called not to be the master or the servant of the state, but to be the conscience of the state. And I think this is a moment where we as the church, those of us that are active in the church, believe in the church and call ourselves followers of Christ, have to be more courageous with our faith and standing for the very ethics that Jesus stood for, that I believe Dr. King also stood for. And those include a commitment to justice and to equality and to human dignity. The other thing that I want to emphasize is the degree to which Dr. King and the civil rights movement more broadly helped to spark and encourage movements for freedom all around the world. There are so many people that I've met in other countries that have learned and been inspired by our civil rights history here, including the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. And so I think, understanding him not just as an American leader, but as a global leader is really critical. And then the last thing that I'll mention is one of my favorite quotes by him, and this is actually kind of the basis of my first book called Mobilizing Hope. In a sermon, and sometimes I don't think we give enough attention to his sermons, he was first and foremost a Baptist preacher. He said, "The saving of our world from pending doom will come not through the complacent adjustment of a conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority." And what that says to me in this moment is that it is those of us that are being creatively maladjusted to the brokenness and the cruelty around us who then take action, as John Lewis would say, get in the way of injustice, that ultimately can turn the tides of history. And we need that transformed nonconformist minority right now. And I think it's building, it's growing. One of the organizations that I do, that my organization does, Sojourners, is we're doing a lot of training of faith leaders in civil nonviolent resistance, because we know we need those muscles right now. You can actually learn a lot more about that in our work at sojo.net. But I'm just prayerful that we can show up in this moment as creatively maladjusted, but it's not just a different mindset. It is also about putting our faith into action in courageous ways.
I'm very grateful, Reverend Taylor, that you participate in our show, and I want you to know that you're welcome back anytime. You've mentioned a number of topics that I do believe we want to unpack whenever you're free. Ted, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future. Happy 97th birthday, Martin Luther King Jr. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We've been celebrating our king on his 97th year of birth. He died at age 39, assassinated, and yet he continues to live. Yes. He lives in our memory, he lives in our thoughts, he lives in our actions, and he's given us a sense of purpose. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.